Oh my gosh, Jackie, you're live.
I'm here. All right. Okay, so today we are talking about DAOs and ta-da. Okay. So, Cosmic Labyrinth DAO discussion. So, the first thing we have to know about a DAO is just very basically a decentralized autonomous organization is an internet-based institutional infrastructure that enables distributed internet tribes to self-organize and coordinate. They are steered by purpose-driven tokens and they are executed with machine enforceable protocols. I'm not going to go over that fourth part yet. That's kind of like a deeper discussion. But that will actually provide a lot of like the first decisions we're going to make, which are which blockchains, how much we want to build custom, how much we want to use tools that are out there, all like reviewing that kind of stuff. So first of all, the blockchain is an internet-based institutional infrastructure. So I think a lot of us have probably, I grew up hearing think global, act local. That was like a slogan that was always kind of around. And what's really cool with DAOs is we get a chance to interact with a lot of different internet tribes that are maybe doing things similar to us, different than us, but we actually get to, this is borderless technology. So you're an international citizen before anything else. You bump into other people in these cloud-based, decentralized systems. That's what you're recognizing between each other is just your sort of international status before anything else. So it's global peer-to-peer reciprocity is what I'm calling it. These can also be known as just transactions. And so a DAO is really headquartered on a distributed ledger across thousands of servers or nodes. Nodes can be anything, servers and nodes that store data can be big, huge servers and actual nodes, but they can also be your cell phone. So like this is really like an energy. Um, do you, yes, Indy, do you want to ask something first? This is the
Teacher,
first time I
teacher,
saw raised
teacher,
hand.
teacher,
Sorry.
teacher, teacher, teacher. I have a question, teacher.
Yes, Indy.
Wait, I forgot. What was my question? Uh, Wait, hold on. Oh yeah. Okay, now I remember the question. Teacher, can I go to the bathroom?
No, that's
Ah,
not the key.
Jackie, here's a question I have. Has anybody innovated in this space of these nodes? Being that's like, are there like, for example, Mick, there's those piezoelectric bicycles that you can like bike and they create energy, or like there's like bathrooms where the pee gets diverted and the pee
Yep.
could create energy.
Yeah, that's the piezoelectric.
Yes, to answer that, yes. A big one that's happening is people that use like 3D printing when the machines are not active, you can actually use them to harness energy, mine. So yeah, anything. I mean, this is why it's so great for rural and agriculture because a lot of machines are experiencing downtime that could be used um, intelligently, I guess we'll say. But yeah, you can double almost all machinery can kind of be doubled. And what's really cool is, and that's kind of something that I list in here. Mining activity, like we say, this is all digital, but it's still physical. Like to create any type of crypto, to run any of these things, we still have to use energy. We have to move data. So what's really cool with a lot of the discussions we'll end up getting to have through this DAO is like in Hawaii or El Salvador, for example, they're using geothermal electricity. And up here in Buffalo, we're using hydroelectric. Then there's the nuclear discussion. And then there's sort of the mainstream, if we wanted to be totally in line with like the global initiatives, it would definitely be like wind, solar, and battery cells. Like that's kind of what's getting pushed the most on the global level, I would say. But there's stuff we could experiment with and all sorts of cool avenues there. So then the second part is digital asset management. So, I wrote becoming your own bank requires tools. So that's all the stuff that we'll get into. We have these communities. Is there a Web3 game? Is there a metaverse? Like what sort of platforms are we meeting on? Where is the edutainment? Do we build a marketplace? Like those kinds of questions we'll address. And then the coolest part is emerging markets. Like I said, this is borderless technology. So anyone with a mobile device and internet connection can participate in a global peer-to-peer trade and commerce without an intermediary. So what's really cool about this is I hate this word. I don't want to use the word alternative because it's always just like an alternative to what? But in a lot of the places that, you know, the resources that we use, we could actually really benefit from dealing globally with other quote tribes or places, you know, whatever. So that's really neat. This slide is a little boring. I'm sorry. So we enable distributed internet tribes to self-organize and coordinate. So those are just kind of talking points that, you know, blockchain provides more transparency by reducing the principal agent dilemma, which is anytime someone votes, you know, over your own personal agency. So when managers act on behalf of a shareholder or politicians on behalf of a citizen, the real beauty of a DAO is that your governance token, or that thing you have that is your voting power, it speaks directly for you. And once you vote, it's posted to the blockchain. So there's no vote counting. There's no possible intermediary interference. We know that this is going to incentivize network actors with a native token, which is why we're going to need somebody that has like a, you know, different economic models to compare. It's why we'll try to understand, you know, how indigenous cultures did things. This is really welcoming everybody's storytelling to how economies work. They're as old as, you know, human civilization and trading shells. So we can have lots of cool discussions about that. Obviously, we're going to reduce management costs by not having to use these third parties. And then this fourth one, this is probably like the biggest deal. So it replaces a reactive procedural security of the current legal system. So like right now in the United States, but kind of similar anywhere, with a proactive automated mechanism that make a potential breach too expensive to feasibly execute. What does that mean? So it means that right now our law is sort of, if you break the law, there's procedural security of a system that you are going to go through, you know, that's going to have jurisdiction over how this is legislated and all those other fun words. But what you're really doing with a DAO is you're reverse engineering. You're being proactive about the automated mechanism. So you're voting now that if these, you know, if then logic statements are met or are not met, or there's a breach somewhere along the line, the technology self-executes it. So to go backwards is a lot harder than, oh, we'll decide later how we're going to deal with this. So that's kind of how blockchain works in general. It makes like cheating the system there's like no winning in the end. If you kill your own system, like you're left with everything, but you have nothing. That's I can get more into this stuff.
It feels also what you're saying is like an aspect of integrity. Like it's like the transparency and the integrity is boosted or something.
Yeah, well, it's there's no veil. You know, there is no like saying everyone knows how you voted, what you voted, and so there's more accountability, I guess, might be a good word, and ownership of, you know, and what's crazy, you know, the biggest problem DAOs face right now is that most people that get governance tokens don't vote. So it's the same problem we see everywhere. But at the very least, these four, all core members must know how to. This is something that I will obviously teach all of you guys as we go through all of this. But this is actually recommended from the Small Business Administration in the United States, that all core members or all small businesses should know how to accept crypto payments, create non-fungible tokens, show how products are sourced, tracked, and traced, and raise money in new ways. If every one of our core members can intimately understand these 4 points, everything else all the other inputs will like make sense, and they kind of revolve around these 4 things. So they don't have to be retrofitted to what we know, what we've ever done in the past. They just have to be explored, understood, and then applied. And then
a question.
Yes, Mick.
Yeah, so you were talking about the kind of reactive procedural security and how the DAO kind of contrasts with that, with the proactive automated mechanisms. So is it could that be kind of like applied to an almost like restorative justice framework? I guess the whole idea is you create your own rules with all this, right? But like I'm understanding that if you break it, like you practically you don't want to, and you probably can't, and if you do, it's like the house of cards falls on you or something. But and maybe I'm not understanding it completely right, but is there like a way to kind of code it so that it's more like, if something kind of goes off, then you actually set off a whole like relational network, you know, like,
Yes.
okay, then now we have a whole set of like basically restorative justice if then statements that like
Hey, oh my God,
line-
oh my God, Mick, people get pinged in the network and they're like, who wants to earn heart coins to be the mediator? Who
yeah,
wants to
exactly.
earn,
Yeah.
right?
You
Yeah.
actually, it's a huge point. So that's where like a lot of like the proposals come in. Because that's why you want like a good smart contract developer. You want someone that's going to stay with us for a while and like, take care of the system and that kind of stuff. Yeah, you can, it's not impossible to reverse engineer things. It's just, it almost makes a greater importance of when you are programming the smart contracts to be really, really sure and definitive. Sorry, there's a motorcycle going by. But to be really clear on the terms and conditions that you are programming into something that is going to self-execute. So I think in a way it makes everyone just take it more serious. And also, as we go through this, you'll start to see that, as in anything in life, you want to keep it as simple as possible, because the more complex you make things, the harder and more crazy it gets down the line to go back. But you could, theoretically, I don't know that I've ever seen it actually done, but there are ways to separate like purely monetary things from happening, where you could actually like trigger some type of like system, like jury system or something like that. I just haven't gotten far enough into actually building a DAO to have touched that. But I'm sure we'll get more people involved too that have done things like that. So hopefully that sort of answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like restorative justice can actually be really simple, even simpler than the current, like, reactive procedural, whatever you want to call it, systems that we have now. It's oftentimes just as simple as like making sure that the party that kind of caused the harm and the party that felt harmed, like, talk to each other and have somebody to mediate it,
Yeah.
You just need three subject, whatever, object, and observer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I mean, I think that would be such a cool thing to open source and for everyone to see as well. I certainly don't have enough exposure to that in our life now. But yeah, these 4 points will pretty much like cover everything. And then the last part that I'm going to cover today is steered by purpose-driven tokens. So this is a lot of what like Indy really started with his Canva presentation, was just, starting with the culture, your governance, your rules, all of these terms, all of the words we're going to use. These are all shaping a culture of this internet tribe. So this all sounds very cold, like incentivize and steer, if-then logic statements that trigger outcomes, a network of actors. So who's participating in our system? What I like to weave into this is kind of like my own thing. So content creation and the role of journalism. So if we look at this diagram here that I have, like the heart would obviously be like the DAO. That would be everything that's self-executing, all the things that we're like programming and setting into motion. And then these main nodes here, these dark ones, those would be like us, the core founding members. So a decentralized autonomous organization, like a lot of people fight about the word, whether it's really decentralized or not. In the beginning, they all have to be centralized because someone has to lay the foundation. And that's kind of where we're like in society mode, I would say right now, is just like putting the framework and the rails together where other networks could come off of. So we're each going to sort of maintain our own little like sub networks as well. That will just happen naturally. So in journalism, the actual role, according to the Print Institute of America, is to provide the information citizens need to make the best possible decisions about their lives, communities, societies, and governments. So I've spent a lot of my life defining these 4 things: lives, communities, societies, and governments. So if we can take these 4 things and define the relationships they have with these 4 things, then us as core members will be able to translate and communicate efficient systems, and just basically we're just we're letting people make their own decisions, but we're really doing it through the lens of like a lot of different options, a lot of different ways you can think about being in a DAO. And at the very last point, the core council writes the rules and proposes them. So another really nice thing, people actually get to learn how to write proposals, which is like a really good skill for people to have. And then the members pass with a yes, no. You would have the smart contract developer write it, and then you would have an auditor actually check that out and make sure that the developer didn't write anything nefarious or anything like that. Of course, there are tools for things if we don't do custom solutions, but I would advocate, if we're all going to put this much time and resource into this, I'm in favor of custom solutions. I think between all of us, we have the resources to do that kind of stuff and take our time and do this right. And I think that's all, because eventually you want to eventually, like once we have things set, that's when you kind of core members start to step away and let the organization really like flourish on its own. But that is the extent of my, but I'm with you, Indy, that the core members, like the agreements that you were drafting up and writing up, like I love those. I think it's really important to make sure we have similar ways of operating in life and viewing what we really want to do. And we can get more, I can do an entire presentation with you guys too on operations. That'll be super important, just sort of like defining what are our tasks. And I think what's going to be interesting in the end is how much physical stuff we're going to be able to tokenize and actually like make a really big impact in this space for like really innovative systems that make sense. And that's the end of my presentation.
Yay!
I love that icon that you
Awesome.
made, the molecular diagram, network diagram, heart carbon. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I also imagine like some of what you shared, however you want to share it, we should have a page on the website about that.
Yeah.
Like, and like even using some of the stuff you created, because I think it's fantastic.
Yes, I can. So I will share with you guys too that there's a man, his name is Derek Smith. He's and like a Toastmaster and like event host. Anyway, I've like was invited to pitch a few times in his program. It runs every Tuesday. He selected me to go on like a one-on-one journey with him for the next 6 weeks, starting next week. So I actually get to pitch every Tuesday. And then on Thursdays, I get one-on-one coaching with him. So if we're ever at the point where you guys, and they get recorded and I can share them with you guys as well. So there's only like 5 to 10 people in the course. But if there's ever a time when you guys want me to just pitch something and see how it lands or whatever, like let me know and I can do that.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, it's good, really good practice. Sweet. You guys have any questions for?
What do you think the time frame is like when we start kind of like developing this to actually like, since we're doing a custom thing, like you're looking at, plus the resources of like the developer, like what's the time frame that you think we could have something like? We're talking 6 months.
I mean, honestly, like things can be built really quickly. Like,
Okay.
like to launch your own like token or something. Like if we had all the structure down, I mean, really like 8 weeks, things can get done. The biggest hang up is honestly going to be funding, getting it done. I mean, like a full on custom solution of just, I mean, if bare bones, and this is what I would ask you guys, just what you're thinking, but like if bare bones, like the thing to be monetized would be like edutainment. I think that's what everyone's sort of gravitating towards, like content. That's not so hard because there's not a lot of like voting that has to go on with that. Getting things, I mean, like something like that would probably cost between like 20 and 30,000, I would say. But I would, Indy, I don't know too, like I was going to ask you how your relationship with like Social Stack went and stuff, because I remember Asher was using them.
Yeah, I mean, it's still there. Justin, and actually I just connected with somebody else who just got hired to lead a different angle that they're to be doing. I mean, they're an easy access point. I mean, they
Yeah.
don't do much complicated stuff. You guys, Social Stack is like literally the QR codes, right? And those QR codes are distributing some currency, and they actually set up the currency with you. They take 10%. Like that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like they take 10% of whatever. So if you generate, like they kind of like guide you to like create your own currency and then use their platform to allocate that currency to your network. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yep.
Mhm.
That's the
So
biggest bulk of the price, is having your own marketplace.
Yeah.
Which I would assume we have the front end skills, like designing a website and all that's easy. It's just plugging in like the mint function and like the blockchain stuff.
Mm.
yeah, and some level of like relationship to whatever is authentic out there, and like at least Social Stack has some funding and they're like trying to figure it out. They're trying to connect it to real world. They're trying.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So is Social Stack, by the name, does that indicate anything to like their ethics and relationship to society, or is it just a platform?
It's a platform that uh I guess it's most important to see like what are some of the projects they have put money into. I think that's that would give you an essence of kind of what they're attempting. Like Afrofuture DAO, they're working with some African artists from Africa, trying to like figure out how to bring some wealth to those spaces, especially the artists and some of the people. Blue Tiki, this is another social coin for climate positive stuff with surf stuff. They have a project Zero Climate champion thing. So they're trying to like do things where they're using community to do good, right? So, but their main thing is code free. Like, so we don't have to code anything. We don't have to pay anybody to code anything. If they're willing to do it for us, I'm not pro bono, but like in some sort of partnership, they would take a bigger cut. Otherwise, they take like a chunk, like Jacki was saying, like 10,000, 20,000 to like set it up for us, right? But if we give them a percentage.
And we had talked about grants as well, right? Or like, kind of think tank grants or startup grants that was showing up. Was that showing up on Social Stack, or there was another platform that had that, right? Like with the DAO.
I can show you guys one
What's that?
really
I
quick.
have that link up somewhere. Hold on, I'll pull it up.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you guys an example too. I was like today I went to go pick up garbage from the fireworks on the beach today, and I was walking around and literally like I was walking up to people and like several different like groups, like young people that were like in their 20s, and they're like, "Oh, thank you so much for doing that." I'm like, "You could join me too." And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Don't you want to earn heart coins?" And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "Here, right." I was like, "Go to the job forum." So I actually had them pull up, I used the QR code on my phone, and they went. I don't know if they signed up in the job forum or not, but that's something that we could be doing all the time anyways. If we're volunteering or cleaning up, just like pulling out the job form and be like, hey, like, want to earn some stuff? You want to earn fire tokens?
yeah.
Right, Charlie? You could be doing Tai Chi just in the park, and people are like, what are you doing? You're like, you want to earn water coins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well,
yeah, it's such a great way to like get past that little hump of inertia that people oftentimes have. It's just like, oh, and then suddenly the water starts flowing, or the fire starts burning, or whatever the element is, right? The wind starts blowing. Yeah. So yeah.
that's my request. Like one of the I hope the takeaways we can get from today is that we like can maybe have. I'm okay with creating 5 Jotcoin QR codes, Jot form that actually, like, if depending on what we're doing, we can all have all 5 of them on our phone. And if we're doing something and people are like, hey, what are you doing? Or whatever, we can be like, here, do this. And that Jot form leads them to sign up with us at the very entry level, through that element.
yeah. You know what I like about what you're saying too, Indy. I was thinking the other day, there's a lot of like NFT art collectors, and it would actually be cool to get some of these higher name collections to maybe donate some NFTs that people could redeem, like with our heart coin or whatever. I'm trying to think of like things that like teenagers would really want to redeem.
And even
Yeah.
even with teenagers and everything, to think about, like, sometimes it's just the inner kid, and like the people I was meeting today, they were just hanging out on the beach, but they would totally channel their inner kid in a moment, if it was a fun group.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just tuning into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great way to fund like community service, right? You just kind of fund and then just go see who is interested in like helping out for the day. It doesn't have to be, because then you don't do any marketing. You're just paying when people show up. Because we really do, like, the amount of stuff we do to try to get people to even care about our culture is like ridiculous. We spend so much money on marketing and barely anyone shows up, right? So why not like easily just like clean up and just pick up people on the way? I think right now everybody's probably got an open space for doing side work, and so a lot of people have lost their jobs in the last 2 years.
I mean, another great way to go about it is teaming up, like we've already mentioned, with like, Kiss the Ground or Treat People, and like actually say, hey, like, while we do this activity, people can earn these coins too, or like you get a different kind of public through that as well. So yeah, I really like the idea of Cosmic Labyrinth kind of popping up into collaboration with many different organizations.
So I mean, also when we were talking, you get that sense of thing about like picking up, like food and then giving it. Like, what if we picked up like all the leftover food that's then can get redeemed by coins that we have? And so then, it's a way, like when you do community service, you can get some of this food, which we're all doing the pickup anyways, that is going to be considered waste, but like we can get it before, to be able to then like give it to the people who have earned it.
Jacki, I sent a link. If you want to take some leadership with this, it'd be cool to reach out to them and just start building some sort of relationship with whoever is their decision maker there, because it's going to probably have to go through some gatekeepers.
Yes, I was going to show you guys too. This is the Metaplex form. So this was for the Metaplex grant, which runs on Solana. But these are, I mean, it's pretty much, these are all the standard questions, like what's your pitch? What are the problems or the needs addressed? What are your plan and requirements? Do you have competition? So unfortunately we are going to have to put it into like business terms. But yeah, they're all pretty much the same. I mean, they all pretty much ask the same stuff. But yeah, like honing in, I'm down, Indy, like getting in on like what are those things we need to answer, and then start answering them, because that's the first step to applying for grants.
And if we can just pare down, like, what is it that we're planning to do in the minimum, and then because we have grand visions for everything. So if we're like at least make it, small enough somebody can comprehend kind of like the A's and B's, very grounded, and then that can be easily kind of put into a pitch like this where people get it. Because I've done so many pitches, and when I first started, it's like, your vision is grand, and people are like, so what are you gonna do? And you're like, oh crap, like we get stuck in like wanting to do all these things, but then breaking it down to the reality, like what's a small thing that we can do that still represents the vision and how it can still grow, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really love the idea of the first tier of this being tied to service, and like really focusing on that, and service in those 5 elements, so it's still quite complex, but like saying, okay, we have these different service categories and they all kind of work within elemental classification, and you can earn these coins within that space.
Yeah, I mean, service could be like the location, right? So how do we act it out as service, but then it could be coming from like a space of knowledge, right? Because then it's like looking for knowledge, and then we find a place of service to learn this knowledge.
So on the other side of that, I want to share with you guys that we're like set up that Instagram, trying to get that flowing again. I'm glad that we opened that up, because I'm kind of nervous about social media myself. So whoever wants to play with it, go for it. But there's a marketplace on there too, right? And Charlie has stuff to sell. Mick has stuff, awesome stuff he's created that we can sell. Prachi made stuff.
Extra shy. I'm still,
Mick, I think we should really like sit down and talk more about what you did and build it into a small product, actually, because we were over scoping that. I think we can sell that really well if we scope it down, but like made it like really useful, or
Jacki,
not useful, but Yeah.
Jacki, I'm gonna get your address and send you one. Don't worry, you're gonna see.
What is, yeah, what is this? What are we talking about?
Yeah, I'll show you. I can't explain it to you. I can't. I just need you to play with it and see what you come up with. You know, right, man.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Mick made a toy. Like literally, it's like you should. At this point, you should patent it. If you don't, I'm gonna patent it. You know.
But the idea of turning into an NFT is the way to patent, right? Because we're first to market. First to market is our way of patenting without going through really the BS and then having really the government steal it, because a patent could say don't do it, because then they could take it from you, and now you're kind of SOL. They have the patent, and you kind of have to just do it with the patent out there versus just do it.
That's why we do a Saints patent. We do the Saints patent. You know, all Saints patent.
Yeah, yeah. Or we're just giving out to everybody, and that at that point, like, we don't care to have it patented, right?
Really quick, I think I'm just gonna share the screen one more time. So I think a really good next step for everybody is like to think about this diagram Mick liked so much. So if you're this node, like you brought up social media, what are you talking about all the time? What is the thing that you actually find the most natural to communicate with an audience on? Because there's not one person here that isn't going to overlap with everybody multiple times. So I think, like, you know, a decentralized autonomous organization, it's an organization. So we are all coming together right now to, you know, make a space for an organization. So what all of us do, and I love you bringing that up, Charlie, like everybody gets in this mode and they're like, I could do anything. And like, you can, but like having the relationships make sense between all of us is going to help us understand what we're really, really trying to do here. I know we all have a couple key really good overlapping, you know, from regenerative farming to understanding our soul's quest and journey better. And I mean, like, they're big concepts, but they do all overlap. And we're going to be able to give outlets for people to experience all that stuff and you know, have a different experience than what they've had.
I think like our biggest overlap is education. I think we're all very passionate about what that looks like. And so in our way of doing that, we're all expressing different ways to kind of come together to support a new way of seeing education, right? Like for me, my particular perspective is I want to gamify education and then play with it in like skits, like, you know, videos, because I like learning stuff from just watching video. I'm like, what? That's an interesting story. And then I have to go look it up in, you know, whatever dictionary, online dictionary, because I mean, let's be real, there's not many places, but you know, I start getting excited about, oh, that's an interesting story. I didn't know about this. And then I look it up and that kind of gets me going. So if there's a way where we can, you know, be able to trigger people to want to know about information, and then, you know, from a fun skit that gets them excited, but I didn't know we could do it that way. So that's kind of, you know, my aspect of it. And plus I have the health space. So like, if we can kind of show, you know, because I mean, Mick is also doing a lot of stuff in education too, right? But we're all doing it like separate. Right. And so I guess like seeing us like put the molecules together, I imagine those games where you have to like change the 3D orientation to make them kind of connect. So we all are like these 3D atoms and we're trying to like shape a new molecule.
I love it. I just dropped a link there for Offbeat Media Group. I actually know the founder of this. It's a Mark Cuban company now. But Chris Travers is an amazing person to follow on LinkedIn. He does a lot with virtual humans, influencers, like how they're going to, but they basically create shows for TikTok. So they create like just, they could be 15-second shows all the way up to a minute to 15 minutes, like whatever you want. But basically what we're watching happening in media right now, specifically through TikTok, is, you know, how can people, they want you on screen time, right? So somebody's tuning in to watch indies clips, and from one clip, man, they just get hooked on them. They're sucked into a 1-hour vortex of indies TikTok content, right? So that's when Offbeat Media Group would say to you, you know, Indy, you've been really successful on TikTok. We want to give you a virtual influencer. We want to take you to multiple platforms. We want you to have a show. We want you to take this elsewhere. So I actually like Chris a lot. And even though virtual humans and Offbeat Media seem like reptilian technology, I've met Chris, and he's so cognizant of what they're doing, of he even like, I love him on LinkedIn because he just tells everybody like, hey, I was in this meeting and this is where we're at. This is something so and so is experimenting with or whatever. And it's up to us to make a judgment of like, that feels right, that feels wrong. How could this play out, this, that, or the other? But he's someone that like, you know, perhaps down the road, I mean, we'd have to, you know, have our ducks in a row and everything, but he's someone that could possibly help with like content and whatever. I've never had TikTok, so I can't speak to the experience, but
Yeah, no, actually, so TikTok and social media right now is actually the beginning of what we did with comic books. It's an episodic, once a week, very small shorts, but over time it builds to a story. So where it started with the 15-second, 30-second, really just do something silly to get people's attention. Now that people are on the platform, they're looking now for long-term content, because when you follow someone, you eventually want something really long-term. Because what's happening is now we're going live streaming, where TV shows are going full like episodic now. So like the movie experience is dying. The 2.5-hour movie experience is coming out to miniseries, live stream. Everybody's watching them at home. So what's happening is the TikTok audience and Instagram, that's something they were talking about, Instagram TV, is they're just really trying to compete with the online streaming entertainment industry now. So social media is changing.
Let me throw in a they live perspective too, you know, a conspiratorial perspective that which we can't these days. It seems the conspiracies are like more truthful than other things.
Yeah.
But you know, it's these things have been very carefully programmed and modified and adjusted to disrupt human optimality, right? Like we're not functioning anywhere close to where humans could right now because of the way TikTok runs, because of Instagram, because of our streaming channel. Like it's not a good, like how things are going right now, it's not a healthy,
right.
Or it's not, we shouldn't try to fit in to that is what I'm trying to say. Like whatever we're doing, if we fit into that, we're not disrupting it, right? We're actually like fitting in.
Yeah, I'm not saying to fit in, but to understand what's happening consciously, right? Because understanding that, because then we could do something similar to that, to then, you know, like take over and similar, but like in the beginning to then disrupt, right? Because, you know, it's really understanding the consciousness of why are people doing this. And that's because they're really looking for content. Like people have left TVs, and that's why what's happening is there's a new Wild Wild West for people's attention.
So my perspective on this is, as an active person who actively likes to disrupt people in the real world, right? Like I take people out of their phones, and in those moments, they don't want to be on their phones. They want to be present with how I'm showing up. And like, how can we encourage that is my question, because TikTok, all these, I mean, yeah, I'm sure they're all important, but the thing is, like, ultimately people really want to connect. And are these platforms connecting them?
I would offer it to you like this, Indy, and this is how I think of it. You know, I kind of feel like my life is like I'm on a little bit of like a rescue mission or whatever. So those people are on TikTok. They're sucked in. Their eyes are glazed over. The spirals are happening. We got to get them. So if we can interrupt them on TikTok with like a really funny series about regenerative farming, I don't know, something like that, right? Where they like get inspired enough to finally click on the hyperlink, or so it's like you're just catching them there. But we can, I mean, and this is where like, again, I've never been on TikTok, so I don't even know that is the outlet I would go toward or whatever. But if we can catch them there, and this is where we do get into like that fourth point of like raising capital in new ways through NFTs and through this new technology, is we can actually start to curate in real life experiences like this one you're going to in Maui. So that could be a reward that like, hey, you know, not only did you watch a bunch of material on how to do this, but you somehow proved to us that you did it in your backyard, or you did it, you know, somewhere that you could or whatever. And that's earning you like ways to like a real experience on or whatever.
Totally. So I mean, look at how many people I follow. So many people. I actually like support some people whenever I can on Patreon who create great content, and that's not through TikTok or Instagram or anything. I'm actually accessing them because they're creating content that's valuable, that I find valuable. So there's all these other modes that don't even require using any of these social media platforms. My only thing to throw at you guys, because you guys haven't experienced it like I have. Like Instagram and Facebook literally censored me when I was sharing stuff about farming. So, like farming, okay? Like I wasn't saying anything about any government, anything. I was talking about farming. And so for us to just be like, it is too innocent in this situation, we shouldn't be. Like we should be cautious about the platforms we're using and how they operate and how they're not transparent. So if we're relying on they're not being transparent, that's really like,
yeah, and what we're saying is we're not saying we're relying on them, but just another platform and avenue to kind of reach them so that we can pull them out, right? Because we're really still in the matrix to pull them out, but to take them to places, because now we can have like, kids who are TikTok ambassadors that says, hey, check out the cool stuff I did at Cosmic Labyrinth. You should follow me. And they could become the new influencers for the next generation.
Well, let me ask you this, because I love, Jacki, your presentation, because we got to think about what are actors and how are the actors showing up in this network? Because certainly I'm just throwing out this idea. What if we don't have TikTok or Instagram? Can we make this successful? So TikTok and Instagram are extra, right? Because let me throw this out at you guys, because like, right now, there's a moment for the trickster energy to usurp these energies we know that are not functioning, right? So if we create ambassadors through our players, what if we have kids who are ambassadors or evangelists like me, right? That go out into the public and interact with people, and we bring them in to the heart, through the fire, through the wind. We bring them in. You don't got to do it, Charlie. I'm not asking you to do it. I'm asking you to do it, Jacki.
But like the 4 elements have also their own way of doing it too. So I'm just saying, like, that's the idea, is like where like the water elements, they're not going to be talking to people out in public. That's not the thing, right? But they'll probably find like a ton of people like in like.
So how do we incentivize that, right? Almost like a MLM scheme, like a conscious MLM scheme, right? Like we're bringing people in because they earn tokens by bringing people in.
To your point, every circular system, which is what every token economy is an MLM, is a pyramid somehow, but it all comes back. Yeah, we all have to get, this is like one thing we all have to get over these terms. Like if there's one thing I can leave.
It's incentive based. I mean, basically any incentive base can be built in a structure of how you manage that incentive. But right now we're trying to be a little bit more collaborative with incentive and transparent rather than pyramidal about the incentive. That's all, right? Like instead of pyramidal, we're more of a circle where everybody's sharing that incentive.
And the first things that should really come out of this are defining, and Indy, you've been so big on this, like really just like what would support you as an individual in an organization? What did you wish was in your last organization that wasn't there? What did you wish your healthcare would have covered? What do you wish your wages, all these things. So like labor relations is a big deal to me. Like I think I'm on this planet to like redefine labor relations. So that's like of the most interest to me, actually. So those incentives, like right now we're building them, but eventually our community, the Cosmic Labyrinth will start to supply. And that's the other thing. Sorry, I don't finish sentences sometimes. But really the coolest thing with these like peer-to-peer tokens is you're putting supply, you're putting demand before supply. So people are actually like pre-ordering things. It's a more natural way of like scheduling what you're going to need and the resources. For example, like there was a taco truck place I was going to do a project with, and they were going to have a metaverse truck where you could vote on like next month's specials. So for them as a restaurant, that was great because now they knew what to order next month and you already pre-bought it with a token. So whether you came and redeemed it or not, they already, made whatever. Everyone looks so tired.
we're just thinking, yeah. And that's very much like a Kickstarter, right? That really pushed like the idea of Kickstarter where people were pre-buying to try to build enough supply so that the demand could be met.
Yeah.
And I picked up this book today to like restart a cleanse, and one of the things it suggested was to like get a sauna in once every week. Like I don't have access to a sauna at all. Like I don't know anyone that owns a sauna. I don't belong to a gym that will let me in. um
You can build one.
yeah,
Come-
well,
come to
some
Houston.
but something like that, like but I feel like that's a really natural thing everyone should have. That like shouldn't be a luxury. Kanye West said it best. He's like, they took beauty and repackaged it as luxury. So like all these things that should really be natural, like I almost imagine myself putting that on like a wish list, right? And like I can actually design my own circular system that's going to eventually obtain that for myself, and make whatever you want, Charlie, whatever you want. So like that's actually kind of the beauty of a DAO, is you're not actually like contingent on someone else. You can design the whole thing to like go get the thing you want or need or whatever.
And that's naturally going to also bring in the people who are connected to that, to what you're expressing.
Yeah, it's like Groupon. It's like, hey,
Yes,
if we all go in on this sauna, we can
Yeah.
use it.
And
Yeah,
one of the
exactly.
low hanging fruits, to ride on what Mick said earlier about like focusing on volunteerism, right, as a way for us to kind of like generate momentum for what we're doing, and maybe the right inertia too, like the spiritual inertia, if it's grounded in volunteerism, is that if we focus on that low hanging fruit at the beginning, and maybe if we can grit, like I'm just throwing this out there, like it'd be wonderful to get programmers and developers that would be aligned with creating some way for that volunteerism to be fun and interesting, and when there are access points on the virtual space, just so people will want to actually go and volunteer, and maybe connect with educators that might be teaching while volunteering with an organization that's already exists, right? Tree People or Surfrider or something. But like you're also getting connected with a possible facilitator or a mentor that can show up and teach a meditation or lead an astrology group or a sound bath at the end or the beginning or whatever, So I'm just putting that out there, like that for me that feels like something that's not too far away, and something to ask for funding too. Like, oh, what do we need funding for? To make a really awesome gamified volunteering thing around elemental currency.
And I love splitting it up into 4. I think the idea of saying like, oh, I have a ton of fire coin, but I need water coin. Oh, 5.
Yeah.
I think that's like really like a psychologically cool and good thing. I buy into that. Like I am that person that would be like, I don't have even amounts. I need to do more water-based volunteering. Like, yeah, that would drive me crazy. So,
And to
Yeah.
Charlie's point, I think like definitely in the category of volunteering, we would be like the teachers would also earn the coin by volunteering to teach.
Yep.
So
Right.
Exactly.
That's the full circle too, right? Because really everybody's generating their own coins and passing it around to other people, and so that the energy is moving.
yeah.
yep.
Because actually a true economy is when money's always moving. The problem is when people hoard money, is actually when the system starts to fail, right? Which goes back to this idea that abundance is when energy is moving. If you actually stagnate, you stop abundance, right? And so that's why we talk about like you stop growing, right? It's because you stop the flow. So this sounds like a great way to really just have an economy that is always supporting both sides of the conversation, of people who's learning, people who's teaching, and people who want to do things, and people who want to help support the great things that we're doing.
And on the financial part of it, just proposing something here based on like what I've studied and understand about NFTs and cryptocurrency and just currency in general. Like I had to learn a lot because I was doing these like high school financial literacy classes, and I'm like sitting there, I'm like, dude, I'm reading all the notes, and it's like once all the kids to do Wall Street, they're like, you have to do Wall Street to make money. And it's like, whoa, what's going on here? But in studying all that and studying what we're doing, really, like maybe it is important for us not to put the cart before the horse, right? Maybe we need to generate value that is based in virtues. And maybe when we do that, like when we first build that culture can't be about how we're going to bank and how we're going to make a bunch of like fiat currency. Like if that's what's driving our volunteerism, if that's what's driving our fire and air and heart currency, like can it be authentic and integral if we do that? Like if we're trying to make money from it ever, like if that's a future consequence, great. But like, can we do that? Is that possible?
I mean, I think building that, isn't that part of the DAO? Like the value is in service and community, and that's what we get rewarded for, and it's not about the money at all, but it might
So
be someday.
when we do make the coins, we don't have to put in, I mean, besides coding it up, we're not really adding, like, we're not putting in money and converting that into coins,
So,
right?
so like, I'll give you an example. When we had our meetings with them, what we walked away after all our meetings, we were just about to print them, like before Asher like quit, like left the campaign. This thing right here was what made it, what was interesting was they were like, oh, select any amount of currency you want and we'll get that created. So like 3 billion. Okay, do you want there to be like every year there's an interest, and so it goes 0.1% gets printed, new print. You can make any kind of configuration you want. Oh, it just stays at 3 billion, and that can be distributed however much. The first 5 people can get this much. You can create any sort of if and thens, but you create a certain amount and then you work from there, how that's distributed within the system.
This is where you want an economist. And I actually do know an amazing woman that lives in Portland, and she would totally fit in. You guys would love her. She would sign the agreements, whatever. But she's done large land deals, and she really understands tons of different economic models and can help. The supply and demand and issuance of coins is the most difficult conversation all of us will have. I don't know, what was your experience on that, Indy? Was it easy to come to?
I mean, Asher is hella smart, and he's like, you know, he went to University of Chicago as a lawyer, as like really, really smart when it comes to money. And he like presented a really, really good like perspectives on getting a certain amount. Like I think we had 3 billion we were gonna do, and then having like every year adding like a certain percentage to add to that. Like having like a small percentage, like between 1% and 5% that keeps getting added every year.
Yeah.
Just to allow some more added, you know, into it.
Yeah. You can almost compare that kind of to like when you work at a company and there's like a guaranteed raise at the end of the year, like they offer people bonuses or whatever. But that's a good way to program in like rewarding really active participants, because honestly, like our biggest hurdle in getting people to participate in a DAO, beyond getting them to even volunteer, is like getting them to check an app or getting them to even just stay in touch with us or check in with us. So like that's going to be the biggest hurdle to kind of tangent. The social media stuff will help for now. But I also do, and in India, we may have had this conversation already, but we should back everything up on a decentralized social media platform. Like there's a couple, there's not a ton of users on them. They're probably, in the users there are probably not our people, to be honest. But it would be something that's safe in case we ever do get deplatformed or whatever.
Totally.
Theta TV is like one. It's like the blockchain answer to YouTube.
And we can just download all our videos too. So we can, when we transfer to platform, we can just re-upload. That's just good practice anyways.
Yeah. I do. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jacki.
I do know somebody that like you guys would know educational platforms more, but I assume that's like something that probably would have to like come down the line too. Like, I don't know if it would be a Slack channel to begin with, or like something that we can organize people before we actually have like a full-on marketplace, or like, because right now the tools for like blockchain communities are kind of lame right now. There's like one called Clubify, which is okay. I just don't know how like long term they're gonna be. So that's why I'm always leery to like jump on one of these. But something like Slack or a shared drive or something that's just organizational for us to begin with would be good.
We already have a Slack, right, Charlie?
Yeah, we already have.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Share that with the group, and then we can get that thing going again. Bring it back to life. So I created this, you guys. It's pretty self-explanatory. I hope you guys play around with this. I just took some notes today. I'm gonna add some more, but like I don't want, like, if you know things get too tight, you can always like kind of make it smaller, you know, and like so just keep adding stuff and however you want to add it. But I also added these pages for the different elements in the sense of like, what are the different what do the currency embody, right? So that we could start contemplating like, okay, like this is kind of informing our currency, and maybe for the economist, the inner economist in us, to be like, how does this currency kind of also show up within us and within the community as well, within the collective, individual and collective. So any questions, any thoughts?
You just gave me the craziest idea. So one of the first NFT projects was called CryptoKitties, and with CryptoKitties was the first time we used like an upgraded token that allowed you could have like a male cat and a female cat, and they would actually produce a new cat, like with new genetics on the blockchain. So like I was just actually thinking about like what would like if a situation required like 3 water and 2 fire or something like that, could it actually like generate a new coin that like means something new or different, or like new value? Sorry, I'm getting a little off tangent, but
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely expansions eventually. There's definitely like really cool apps that start bridging, or at least technically where you start mixing the elements together, but that's when things get complicated, right? And so that's why we want to start simpler.
Right
But it
now
could be like 2
right now
coins. You could say 1 earth coin and 1 fire coin.
First, I feel like let's just get through these agreements.
yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Like once we like, yeah.
I just
ground
want to
down-
breathe things.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the idea behind actually the why they're split, because then eventually if you wanted to like read them, the 4 elements represents really the overall arching elements, right? So even in like, because fire doesn't mean just fire, but it could be like, you know, multiple things under fire, right? So those are the different traits. So now you can mix like let's say for me, I'm doing something with that combines fire and earth, and so I can say, hey, you know, this NFT costs 3 earth, 2 fire, and so that's one way of like mixing the elements together without creating a new token yet.
You're gonna love the toy. You're gonna love the toy. That's exactly what the toy is.
Yeah, exactly. And so you know, I feel like this is kind of getting back to what the piece that Jacki shared earlier with the culture. And like I've also heard from, you know, really smart, wise people that are in the space of supporting decentralized communities and writing papers and essays and like researching decentralized communities. That's been the toughest thing, is to create a culture that is like that's, what's the word, that's resilient and adaptable and compassionate and like interconnected. That culture, people have not been able to accomplish that yet. So if that could be what we are kind of aiming to do by creating a DAO, that'd be fantastic, because now we're channeling all of our greatness, and maybe we all can lean into our greatness too, because we might be creating a 12 apostle kind of thing over here. We don't know, because like who's coming with the kind of backgrounds we have to do this DAO stuff. I mean, Jacki, you're in the spaces. There's, you know, there's not this.
I don't think there's many people coming from like a mature standpoint on a lot of like esoteric or mysticism or like that kind of stuff. I think, you know, we're almost like reminding people, which is better than like trying to implement something that they should do, you know?
Exactly. So Mick, like, I know you got some ideas, like, please like add stuff on here. Like I've imagined this to be almost like a living constitution, right? Like right now we're using Canva, but like, I mean, who knows how it could be in the future, but the point is, or how we integrate people into it, but we should all keep being able to add to this list, you know? And when we have a meeting in person, or we have an event and some kid offers something, or somebody offers, it's like, oh wait, yeah, we got to add that to the list. Let's all agree on it, you know?
I think the most important thing to think about with this, and to your point, Indy, about like community and culture building, is like we have to be able to have a closed feedback loop. So, you know, what our community is saying or what our people are saying, like we have to have like an intake system where we can actually like address those things and add them in and consider them and that kind of stuff. And that could be jot form. Honestly, that's like a very strong contender in my head for that. But you know, polling and questions and like that kind of stuff, that's going to keep them the most engaged too.
Yeah, I think we need to figure out like the best way to have like a database that manages all our people, and they could self-manage some of the stuff too. So like
I love that you Oh, I'm sorry, Trey. I love that you put specific stuff too, Indy, like where you put like, will you agree to take care of a plant? Like I could see that actually. I would love if people had to NFT that, like their plant progress or something like that. And like
That's what
there's
I
lots of,
imagined it. It's almost like we're almost creating a curriculum for what is a happy and
yep,
healthy human being, right?
yep.
But we have to embody. I mean, even at hearing you guys right now, I'm kind of triggered, jumping to list and everything. I'm like, wait, we first have to live these things. Like I know
Yeah.
I need to improve with some of these things personally, you know?
Mhm.
Well, we should, I mean, I love that though. Start with us. I mean, I guess so starting from this document, maybe that's the next thing to think through is how do we actually be accountable to each other,
Mhm.
to ourselves? What does that look like?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Is that something we share in like some sort of thread, whether it's Slack or whoever's jumping on board, and like so that we are kind of creating the NFTs almost in a way.
So there's, what do we have 6 like really dedicated core members at this point.
We should feel that out. We need to check in with Brachi and Kelly, right, Charlie?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because we could have like, well, I do think one important thing to start with.
Can we build up to the core members? Like, or do they have to start like core members right away?
Well, here's it. Maybe this is a good idea. So, like, I love starting with the astral DNA because it's a good way to just sort of like have a quote digital twin that is you. I mean, that's what every spiritual thing is trying to search, right? The ego, the id, where's the line, what's the relationship, blah blah blah. So you start with that, and that's sort of your like your base ego that you're born with, I guess you would call it.
I don't have an ego. What are you talking about?
Hey, let
Hey,
go my ego. Let go my ego.
oh, be nice to you. Love your ego. Um,
Yes.
but so starting off there, it's kind of like this admittance, first of all, that like, hey, we're all different, we're all unique, but we do have similarities, whatever. But if the core group, like I guess I would be a water sign, maybe we could be, each committee could be responsible for checking in on those things. So we have like a check-in meeting that's like, Charlie and I are representing water. How's everyone doing on their water or whatever?
I love that.
Mm.
Great idea.
And we could actually like, I mean, even maybe that's some of the stuff we like put into like a running jot form, just like our own team's diagnostics, I guess.
Yeah. So one thing I really loved about the have you read this Fifth Sacred Thing, the book by Mirbai Star? So Starhawk, I mean, yeah. So anyway, so she talks about like the committees. They have like councils, and the council members all have like one elemental, and the elementals dress up as a bird or as a reptile or like whatever kind of element that they're representing, right? So like a bear or yeah. Anyway, so like yeah, I think they have like some ones that's dressed like a fish or a salmon too, and it's like that's the representative, and it rotates through the whole kind of council who gets this kind of to embody the element in that session, in that meeting, and every element is represented and kind of spoken for, right? So I could see something like that functioning. I mean, honestly, I think it would be great if we looked at some of Starhawk's writings and how she does organization. I mean, Indy has the whole book, the manual, and like base a lot of our DAO on that because she's done a lot of the legwork already for permaculture societies and mystical ones, especially. So she's looked at mysticism.
Jacki, you should get that book. It's like empowerment manual, or
Yeah.
actually, I could send it to you with mixing.
Cool. Yeah, I'm all for if and I mean, I'm here to learn just as much. I mean, we all have expertise in knowing how things were done in the past or whatever in our own personal lives, but yeah, I'm totally here to learn different structures and how to do these things 100%.
Or here's a suggestion, and I know Charlie's been wanting to do this forever, so maybe now is the time we lean into it. But maybe we reach out, Jacki, if you want to take initiative, or I can like do some research real quick. But what if we have Starhawk on and have a conversation with her about this and ask her, like what are thoughts, and we can, you know, we can like start like a podcast or just start some sort of share about that, you know?
Yeah.
And whoever from our group wants to join can join.
I think these are like the content we're talking about, doing something like a review of that or talking to the actual author or whatever. I mean, those are perfect webinar opportunities to get people on, like, you know, live stream it to YouTube and have people actively be in the Q&A. You know, that's all good engagement stuff.
We did something a little similar to that. We've done it a few times. We had someone where they kickstarted a child book, and then we read the entire book and had the artist also come online. And so they were sharing that experience with the kids. And so the kids got to experience actually behind the scenes of writing this book out. So those are great places where, yeah, we can bring in people to have conversation of their book or whatever they're talking about, and then take it further and say, what do you think, you know, that looks like when we talk about a DAO for education, right? And then get them thinking like, oh, that's interesting. And then that could spawn more discussions, really like implementing all these ideas into like this greater community that we're building, right? So maybe like the shows that we're doing is really the exploring what a DAO looks like, what is it that decentralizes, you know, and how do we then share this information, which is basically the idea of education, right? Because technically somebody figured it out and created curriculum to pass on one topic. So eventually when you group up everybody, it's a school, or what we're trying to call a multiversity, right? Where it's multitude of people.
You know, when I was explaining this to somebody last night at the when I was at July 4th celebrations, and I was trying to explain what we're doing. And when I explained it like in that way, that we want to support teachers that are teaching people how to connect to the elements and to the world and the real world, people were like, whoa, like what? Like that was a really exciting point, you know? So I wonder if we can focus on that element, because then we're not worried about kids. We're not really like, we're not focusing on kids. That's like a byproduct, you know?
Right.
Like,
And it's
really
really
just on
focusing,
educators. Huh?
yeah, no, I definitely agree. And then just the idea of like the four elements too, right? It simplifies it, because then even the teachers will be able to connect with those as well.
I think this really fits nicely with the conversation we had with Adam a few sessions ago too, where he was really got so excited about that idea of supporting the educators and the ripple effects out of that, and having what is it? You have the advisor and you have the what are the terms that he used? The anyway, somebody who's like an observer, and then somebody who's like more of a mentor for that process. But
not the mediator.
What?
Not like a mediator subject object thing.
No, but you were mentioning the terms to me before, Indy, when we met in person. There's the mentor, or not mentor, but like the observer.
Was it kind of on their levels of engagement, Mick?
Yeah, it is, exactly. Yeah. There's one that like just comes in for quick kind of sessions, like 90-minute check-in every month, and then there's somebody who's like really there constantly, and it's really all about enabling this novel way, well, gratitude-based change making, right, in the world.
Yeah, and also possibly distributing currency that we're making up. Like, we're totally open with that. We're making it up. You know?
You know, Indy, you're really inspiring me for all of us to sort of seek out, like, some of these DAOs have like 14 advisors. I mean, we could have as many advisors as we want. And there's one specific person that I would love to like advise. Her name's Sherman Voshmiger. She's actually like the writer of the book Token Economy. You know, she's the smartest person that you could possibly ask to advise on like a technical thing. I don't even know if she would do it, but you know, for all of us to sort of think like, what would that role of someone we could really like lean on to get through this process, like for like our specific role or whatever.
I even wonder if anybody wants to advise like that, if we should also encourage them to have to review our DAO, and like, and they also should agree to that, you know?
Yeah. Because even like this Starhawk, it would be cool if she kind of like, you know, if she agreed to check in once a month with us, you know, for like 45 minutes, maybe that's not too much of her time or whatever. I'm assuming it's a her. Sorry, I shouldn't do that.
when everything starts flowing, it's gonna flow, and then we're gonna have to be very discerning. Right now, we're like, but what we have to just get things flowing, and some of it is just getting like what we did a few weeks ago, but like also just doing stuff also for the elements in our own world, wherever we're at, and starting to like be proactive in our own world to show up in these different ways that are lined up in the DAO, and then sharing what we're doing in that way too. Might be the organic will be so powerful, you know.
Yeah, I like that idea of like, so if we decide on a platform for basically beta testing this whole concept, which maybe it's going to be just Slack at first, and we're just posting an image or something like that of what we're doing, and talking about the elemental relevance, and then like then we can say, okay, we're ready to invite somebody to have a conversation with us, or so I feel like we have to do something, a few more things before we can start like having these outward facing platforms again.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I would love to take what you have down, Indy, and like put these in some type of like checklist, not a checklist, but like something. I mean, like if I had something tangible where like I knew in my week, like to be accountable to my DAO, I had to like do 3 or 4 of these volunteer activities, like I would do that. That's essentially gamifying it. If you guys can't tell, I love games. Like, if you give me a list of things to do, I'm gonna attack it. So
Yeah, you're a quest person, right? You like those quests and
I
tactics
do,
quests.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I actually think we should go back to like doing either like a short form show, what that, to really kind of bring the conversation further. We could start with the 4 elements, but really we are really pushing education. So we should really have that conversation, and like asking people who is in that space. Then maybe it could be a good way for teachers who are like interested but don't know what we're talking about. And then we talk about the 4 elements. They're like, wow, that's brilliant. I want to get in on this, and that could be a way to capture their imagination of really, what their mastership is. So if we did like a small, conversation that constantly has this conversation, just all of us kind of sharing this information, it could be really, good for people to join.
So when do we want to have a checklist done by? I'm calling it a checklist, but
No.
a weekly Zengenda.
Then agenda.
I mean, what we can do
I
is
went to
try
school.
to,
At school, went to school.
like weekly, like go get closer to getting it down to something, and then maybe plan like 3 weeks from now. Is that too much time, or?
Let's do this. Let's do this today, next week, the same time next week.
Yeah, we should get maybe we can do one of those doodle polls or something, but I mean I would advocate, like, I know it sounds like a lot, but maybe in the beginning we could meet twice a week, and one day can be sort of like defining actions and another day can be reviewing. I can offer that. I don't know where everyone else stands, but it would be helpful
Yeah.
for me to like standardize some of the like times we meet.
Yeah, we should definitely add something a little bit more. Like the weekly was helpful because we kind of are organized around that time.
Tuesday at this time goes for me. I feel like then we can get more people. Weekend's always so hard.
Yeah. Everybody's got stuff on the weekend.
I like seeing you guys on Sunday night though, not gonna lie. You're like part of my weekend.
I mean, we could do that more like a personal thing, right? That could be a space where we, don't film anything. It's just everybody to kind of connect. That was kind of like how Tizzle and I were doing like once a week. And that was helpful for us just to really, we were going through what it calls therapy. I mean, we're just, talking about all the problems we've had, so that we were realizing like, oh, you want to do the same thing I want to do, and I've been upset about the same thing. This is amazing. So that felt very therapeutic. So, I mean, we could do that as like our weekly, and not put pressure into people to like, hey, if you have things to do, don't feel bad that you're not missing, but we won't record it. And that's just a time for us to kind of gather. Because that could be a creative time too. Maybe like, hey, I need help like this. Let's think of some, like, I want to do a play shop about this, and gather people to want to talk about it.
Do we have anyone on our team that's like versed in running remote teams?
I mean, I used to as engineers, but that's a very different management style for engineers.
Just if we do have anyone, that would be cool. I suck at being on remote teams. At like this is all kind of new to me, to be honest. So
I mean, I did a lot of stuff with teenagers remotely, and that's why I use Canva, because that was how I had them using it even when they weren't in class.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, Canva's dope. Yeah,
And
we'll
that worked
figure
with people.
we'll hit grooves.
Yeah. Well, I think even with Slack, like what should happen is we should naturally have people who want to like lead different parts of the projects, right? So where you are going, Jackie, with the DAO, you know, maybe setting up a time for us to then have the conversation about DAOs, but then, you know, like Indy focusing on what he wants to do, you know, and then some of us then kind of whatever was supporting you, whatever, you know, if you want to do some soil regenerative in Hawaii, right? But, you know, like, supporting that, because I've been thinking about doing like I took a break from astrology because it was really tough. I was putting all this time and no one was showing up, and it was just bad marketing. You know, I'm new to Houston, so I hadn't really thought about the marketing of space. So now I really, that's why like social media was a big deal, because I had to really you know, we have to market to people we don't know, like my herbs and my astrology and side gigs that I have. So that's kind of the reason why. But now, like, I think I took a break for a while now. And now with the 4 elements, I'm like, I should just really refocus and not make it an astrology class, but make it like Cosmic Labyrinth 101 using astrology, and start setting up like what I think this, you know, the learning your 4 elements and becoming the superhuman or superhero part of like the curriculum that I'm doing, and just testing it out. You know, so that's what I'm looking to do. And then doing an online video to support that conversation where we're bringing people who continues the conversation. So if it's the month of fire, we're talking a lot about fire elements, either in person or online, and keeping that conversation going. So maybe there's a way for us all to organize where Indy, maybe that month, you're also doing something that is, you know, fiery, where maybe you go to fire ceremony and you like, you know, hey guys, you know, this is like really fire bending. And you should check out Cosmic Labyrinth if you want to learn like this is fire bending, but imagine water bending. And people are like, what's water bending? Well, we're gonna go see dolphins next month, and we're, you know, that's water bending. I don't know, you know, like there's a way for us to kind of like maybe, you know, build together like what this looks like. But yeah, I'm definitely excited about just, you know, putting my own like the astrology part back up, but not focusing astrology, just focusing on those, again, the 4 elements, 5th element, and what that comes
so
up
one of the agenda items that I want to like leave us with is that we really hone in on some sort of marketplace, at least like whatever's like the easiest thing, whether it's like having like a Etsy or setting up through Instagram marketplace, or through the website. Charlie and I were talking about like getting GoDaddy and getting that going, and kind of like redoing the website a little bit too.
Yeah, and then linking up like digital wallets and such, like Venmo and all that to, yeah, build that connection.
We can do t-shirts at the very least. At the very least.
Yeah, we should be selling products. I think we can definitely do that. Plus, I think we should do like a Patreon where maybe we could have like, you know, again, the 101 as free, but like if you guys really want to bring it, like the teacher at Starhawk, maybe we have a small conversation, but maybe we say, hey, would you be interested to do like a $10 class for somebody about what you're trying to teach? You know, maybe everybody tries different play shops with us.
By the way, I didn't realize this. I had to redo my credit card, and I like saw like on PayPal we have a recurring donation that's been happening every month for like a year and a half now.
Wow.
From somebody who came to one of our family film nights. Remember our family film events?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
One of the people came to that has been every month has been dropping $3.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should totally like, you know, share that with people and say, yeah, thank you for that person, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think also the way we might want to phrase it for the first phase of this is that all that income is really going as a nest egg for the development of the sort of the crypto platform that we're talking about, right? The token platform, because we do need to have some kind of investment for that, right? So and really make sure that we emphasize that it's not just crypto for crypto's sake. It's crypto related to service, you know. And so
I feel like that to me, if I'm looking at it from the outside, I'm like, I would really like to support this because it's like something that's eventually is going to actually support more service in the world by funding this first push. But it's not a Kickstarter, it's not a GoFundMe, it's kind of more of an internalized network, right?
You know, I like the idea of thinking, I was like, Indy, when you said you were picking up trash, like maybe to earn the token is when you come home and like write an assessment of that or something. Like maybe there's like a, how did that make you feel? How many people did you help? Or like, not how many did you help, but just more like,
It could be like bonus tokens, like you earn like 2 water tokens, and for 5 more heart coins, talk about your experience and what your heart felt going through that. And so that could be a way for people to then gain more coins. Yeah, I like that. So
yeah.
it keeps them engaged throughout, you know, the experience after they've met us.
Well, and connected. I think the biggest, issue we all have is thinking that, people only do things to redeem something instead of just doing it to do it. So
Right.
maybe like following the emotional intelligence development. I mean, that's also something that interests me. I mean, just even for myself personally, like if I really held myself to these things that Indy has listed out, like how would I change as a person in a year from now? Like, and a big thing of this industry too is data ownership. So that we're also going to have to get like I have a couple people, I know a couple people. One is, her name's Nefertiri and she's amazing, but like a super technical security person, security best practices for all of us, and how we own our data, and all of that stuff is going to be conversations eventually. Okay, everybody ready for night night? It's almost 11 here.
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, it's getting late.
I'm gonna close the sandwich shop up.
Yay.